the Whitney Museum Acquisition Committee voted enthusiastically and unanimously to acquire 2 of my paintings. But hold on, let me rewind. How did we get here? I grew up mostly in New Hampshire, where I loved running around the woods. I got a track and cross-country scholarship to Boston College, where I was acutely aware I needed to get a good job, so I studied information systems, a subject I came to love. When I graduated in 2010, I got the job at Google, back when they were still making you go through 16 interviews, and they flew me out to Mountain View twice during my senior year to interview. But I was really unhappy at Google. I was seeing tech used to manipulate our attention and sell us stuff we don't need, mostly controlled by men who were both subtly and overtly harassing me. But I really believed in the power of technology for positive personal transformation. I posed my quitting Google as a challenge to technology. So could the internet make me into an artist? I've been pursuing that experiment ever since, later defined as, can I hack myself into the art world? So I started with no skills, no connection, $5,000 saving, and a membership to 24-Hour Fitness, where I showered and brushed my teeth at night before returning to my legally occupied art studio, where I had a rice cooker, and where I watched YouTube videos on how to draw hands and how to paint clouds and how to stretch a canvas, how to write an artist statement. I did Stanford's free practice-based research course online. I did a course at MoMA online. I made a lot of very bad art. I drove for an early Uber competitor. I had a 2-star rating. I had been trying to spend time in the studio with any artist I could get an introduction to, and in 2014, I got the opening of a lifetime. A friend I grew up with knew someone who knew someone who knew someone who knew someone who had exhibited with the figurative painter Billy Childish. I secured an invitation to Billy's studio. When he asked to see my portfolio, he flipped through it and just said, "This is really bad." To which I replied, "Oh, I know." It's funny to me that the art world considers me self-taught. I graduated with honors from a top liberal art school, had the entire internet at my disposal, and learned life drawing and classic painting from a master studio. I guess to the art world, not going to a small set of art schools means you're self-taught. While learning classic techniques from Billy, I continued to experiment with technology, only really bridging my practices together with the help of Nimrod from his organization Artbyte. In 2018, I published a peer-reviewed academic paper with the electronic visualization in the arts conference at the British Computer Society that later became the basis for a book published with the V&A called Search Engine Art. In 2019, right before I hacked the Frieze Art Fair, I got a major rejection from an art dealer who had previously promised to support the printing costs with a $1,000 investment. On the same day, Artsy pulled out of an exclusive agreement to cover the story. This all turned out to be a great thing when the morning of the fair opened and my hacking of the art fairs dominated the press, with articles in the LA Times Hyperallergic Artnet, even on Swedish radio, and dozens of others that began to document my internet performances. Penny Slinger moved in next to my studio and became the witchy feminine mentor I needed to help break me out of my need to be taken so seriously by the world. Instead, I started to dare people not to take me seriously. My work had manipulated Google search results for the 2020 presidential election, but they looked as innocuous as I did. Pink, effeminate, flowery. I dare you. I exhibited these vision boards in California, London, Austria, Germany, and Dubai, including 2 museum acquisitions and a major 3-room, 8-month exhibition at the FC Linz, which printed my first museum catalog. I sent one of these catalogs to Christian Paul at the Whitney. I then took almost 3 years, mostly in the woods of Utah, to work on my next big idea, Facetune Portraits. After finally nailing down the technical and conceptual process with the help of Matter Labs, I hosted more than 100 online studio visits, which led to opportunities to share the work. With Postmasters and Transfer Gallery at Berlin Art Week, in Beijing, at Paris Photo, at Tate Modern, at Untitled Miami, in Korea, at Gray Area, at Hope 93, Expo Chicago, Heft Gallery New York. Now here we are, in the Whitney's permanent collection. There are more stories, like the time I put my entire studio in a U-Haul and drove it to West London to do a studio visit with an art dealer I couldn't get to come to Hackney Wick. Kim Gordon said people will pay to watch you believe in yourself, and I've always taken that as a serious part of my job as an artist. There were doubters and haters, harassments and betrayals, other stories I no longer tell myself. There were major losses, and I've come to learn that my biggest art project will always be my own reality, the world that I invent to live in and keep making work in. I'm continuing to push the boundaries of this process, of this technology and concept. So what's next? Just know that I didn't come this far to only come this far. I'm so glad you're joining me on this journey. Thank you for being part of it. Drop us your email so we can make sure to invite you to some of the art world's most joyful events. And thank you so much for celebrating this Whitney acquisition with me.